Right. All right. I'm going to call opening the May 26, 2026 budget meeting for Lincoln County. Start off with a roll call and then election of officers. Kristen Dawn,
Chair, present.
Tom Fulmer,
Budget committee member.
Present.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Walterchuk, present. We have a quorum. And we will now start off with election of budget committee officers. Does anybody wish to make a motion? Kristen?
I would like to move to elect Commissioner Chuck as chair.
Sure, I'll second that motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Congratulations, Walter.
Thank you.
I
And
would,
then,
yeah, I would maybe motion we make Kristen Dawn vice chair since Tom was chair last year, or I'm open.
I would love to elect Tom as the vice chair. I
Oh.
thought he did an excellent job last year.
Okay. It's fine with me. I would second that motion to make Tom Fulmer vice
Right.
chair.
all right. Thank you for that.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I was going to nominate Kristen Dawn as vice chair.
Oh, see?
All right.
Telling
Well, we
you.
have a motion and a second. So, Tom, I'm sorry, but you'll just have to be vice chair. But actually, do we have any discussion? We have a motion and a second.
No,
No?
thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
Oh, sure.
Now we'll go to the budget message. We'll have Lennon,
Mr.
Our-
Pierce.
finance director, and
The budget officer.
There we go. He was
Yeah.
changing my Ken was there changing my settings, so I
Yeah.
am now officially one of you. So
yeah. So
if my Wi-Fi can't handle the video, I apologize. That might have to go. I'm not sure. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
all right. So we have Lennon Pierce, our financial director, who is also our budget officer. The floor is yours, Lennon.
All right. Good evening, everybody. To members of the Budget Committee, pursuant to ORS 294.331, it is the responsibility of the Budget Officer to prepare the annual budget for Lincoln County and its special districts. In accordance with Oregon law, it is my pleasure to present the proposed budgets for Lincoln County and its 5 special districts for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 26 and ending June 30, 27 to the Budget Committee for this coming this fiscal year. The proposed budget for Lincoln County and its 5 special districts for the FY 2026 to 27 totals $213,583,435, which is an increase of 3% from the current amended budget of $207,452,305. Budget process and organization. Budget development. The budget process was initiated in January of this year. With revenue forecasts being completed, the departments are requested to submit department narratives as an outline of an overview of the department, including their recent accomplishments, goals, and everything combined for the upcoming fiscal year. In March, the current fiscal year projections are being made to establish as a baseline for developing a proposed budget for the next fiscal year. Departments submit their requested budget to the Finance Department for the coming fiscal year at that time. This information is compiled and a review is done evaluating the fiscal impact that the requested budgets will have on the county's finances overall. The budget officer reviews the requested budgets, makes necessary adjustments to the requested budgets to bring expenses in line with projected revenues for the next fiscal year to develop a balanced proposed budget for the submission to the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee reviews, revises, and is charged with approving a budget for recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for their adoption. The approved budget is submitted by the Budget Officer to the Board of Commissioners for any revisions and final adoption. The budget provides a legal authorization to spend funds up to the budgeted amounts for county operations throughout the fiscal year. The budget can and most likely will be modified or amended as additional information and circumstances can arise. Any changes to departmental or program activities impacting the approved budget during the fiscal year requires Board of Commissioner approvals. Any changes in staffing or expenditures exceeding appropriated and budgeted amounts ultimately require board approval for the changes to the department's budget. Governmental accounting standards. Lincoln County adheres to the generally accepted accounting principles known as GAAP, as applicable to state governments, which are uniform minimum standards of and guidelines to financial accounting and reporting. This includes the use of various types of funds for budgetary and accounting purposes. The Budget Committee is, in effect, not reviewing a county budget, but reviewing the budgets for a variety of funds that, when taken together, comprise the budget of the county. Many of the funds used by Lincoln County are statutorily required by the state. Other funds have been established for financial management purposes. And lastly, some funds are used for the convenience of the local government's efficiencies. The fund structure places limitations in transferring revenues collected for one-time purposes to pay for services provided by other funds, and in addition, the budgets of 5 special districts are reviewed and approved by the Budget Committee and submitted for adoption by the Board of Commissioners. This budget document outlines the financial plans for Lincoln County for fiscal year 2026 through 27 for each of its funds. The Lincoln County budget is comprised of the many individual funds, all with specific purposes or operational focuses. While the general fund is the largest of these funds and contains the operation of our elected official, public safety programs and functions, and the general government and central services activities alike. The financial plan for health and human services are outlined in a group of operating funds dedicated to providing health and mental services to the Lincoln County residents. This is the next largest groups of program and services within the Lincoln County budget. And then the Public Works Fund contains the county roads program as well as the county engineer and fleet departments, and is also one of the notably large funds as well. Special purpose and capital project funds contain resources and reserves that are restricted to a specific purpose or activity. These funds have a limited number of employees associated with them and may use external contracts or service providers. Special district budgets are legally separate from the county's operational budget and are managed with budgetary oversight from the Board of Commission. The Special 5 districts have separate taxing or fee assessment authority, but in all other respects operate like any other fund or program of the county. Now to economic issues impacting the budget. This budget continues to focus on maintaining general services infrastructure investment while working to maintain sufficient balances to keep the county in solid financial shape as its highest priority. There are several issues that will have an impact on revenues and expenses during the incoming fiscal year. The Oregon Economic and Review Forecast issued by the Oregon Department of Administrative Services on February 4th, 2026 stated, "The national economy largely defied the pervasive pessimism among forecasters in 25, and now this is positive momentum is manifesting upgrade projections for 26 as well. This does not mean we are off to the races for growth, hiring, and tax receipts. More likely, the economy will witness a small, moderate pickup." Shortly after the forecast was released, military action in Iran was initiated on February 28, 26, and this action has resulted in a substantial increase in the cost of oil, which has had an immediate impact on fuel prices and will likely increase the rate of inflation as higher oil costs are reflected in prices for transportation, manufacturing, and agricultural sectors for the remainder of this year. The duration of overall inflationary increases is uncertain as the impact that the inflation will have on the overall economy during the next year. Higher energy costs have direct impact on our county operations, and the county will need to absorb the inflationary pressures on material and construction costs during the next fiscal year. In January 2026, the Economic Development Alliance of Lincoln County, EDELC, completed an update regarding various economic trends impacting Lincoln County. The Lincoln County Board of Commissioners provided funding for this study. Findings in this study included Lincoln County and other coastal counties have in the last 2 decades undergone significant economic transitions. Traditional resource-based industries like commercial fishing and wood products have declined in relative importance. Trade and service jobs associated with businesses serving tourism and retirees have increased. Agriculture in coastal communities has remained fairly constant because of the influence of the dairy industry provided in Tillamook County. There has been an increase of other industries in coastal counties, which replaced the relative importance of natural resource industries. The data indicates that Lincoln County's economy is more diversified and healthier than 15 years ago. The decreased reliance on extractive industries have made Lincoln County's economy less susceptible to national business cycle downturns. Using shares of 2021 residents' net earnings in Lincoln County, the area's driving industry categories are commercial fishing at 16%, agriculture at 1%, timber at 3%, and travel tourism is 23%. The two agglomerated industries for other identified, such as paper, paperboard mills, waterborne commerce, steel fabrication, and other identifiables, marine science, schools, and health, are 12% and 26% respectively. The residual net earnings catch-all category for businesses that were not identified from jobs not located in the county was 19%. In the last 2 decades, Lincoln County transfer payments increased from 23% of total personal income to 31%. Net earnings proportions decreased from 54 to 45%. Investment income was steady at 24%. So taken all together, investment income and transfer payments make up 55% of the total personal income of Lincoln County in 2023. This share is compared to 54% for the coast and 42% for the rest of Oregon. Retiree age reliance on those income sources show the importance of the cohort spending within the local economy. One industry cluster relevant to Lincoln County is referenced as the blue economy. The cluster is geographic concentration of marine, maritime, and freshwater-focused businesses supported by universities and governments that collaborate to foster innovation and sustainable economic growth. The EDALC has taken a lead in participating in a statewide effort to establish several blue economy hubs along the Oregon coast. Newport area is one of the hubs. The focus on ocean-related businesses is to turn away from the unsustainable past strategies and launch assistance programs for industries of the future, issued in January 2026. Housing affordability is a problem for filling new job openings within the county. Cost and availability of childcare and presence of broadband services for remote working and telemedicine are also concerns of potential worker-client attraction. Skilled jobs will largely need to be filled with incoming families and workers because of limited mobility within local labor force and outmigration of educated young adults. These hiring problems ultimately negatively impact business growth and economic goals. Looking at demographics, Lincoln County and the coast population continues accelerating away from young families raising children and moving toward retirement age population who have either stayed in or relocated to the region to enjoy the environment and the quality of life. The population is growing in Lincoln County and on the Oregon coast. However, the increases are demographically in older age groups. The net migration growth is coming from the national quote-unquote boomer generation age cohorts. As these people reach retirement age, they come to the Oregon coast seeking a higher quality of life, and most migration is coming from California. Curry County has the highest county's growth of retirees, but all coastal counties are experiencing an aging of the populations. Wealth, while defined by total personal income, has increased at Lincoln County and the coast because both population and per capita income have increased in recent years. However, household incomes are lower than the rest of the state. There are more people working in lower wage brackets, and in addition, there are more part-time jobs at Lincoln County and the coast than statewide. The poverty rate at Lincoln County and the coast is higher than in the rest of Oregon. Federal funding and the local projects. There has been a significant shift in the availability of federal funding to assist communities in addressing infrastructure needs. A number of grant programs at the federal and state levels have had funds frozen or programs have been eliminated that would otherwise be available for programs and major infrastructure projects for local governments like Lincoln County. This has impacted several programs in the county ranging from public safety to health and human services, and these actions will mean more reliance on local funding, bonds, fees, and rates to finance much-needed infrastructure projects going forward. On a brighter note, several projects' funding sources have previously committed funds to local communities. This is an area that will need to be closely monitored by impacted departments to address any financial adjustments that need to be made in the budgets throughout the fiscal years and in the future. Strategic goals and strategies. The proposed budget reflects the changing economic and political environment which the county is operating in, and more importantly, anticipates that this environment is going to continue for the foreseeable future. With that in mind, there were several key principles used to develop the proposed budget. These principles are: they align with county financial policies. The county has adopted financial policies to guide management in making sound budgetary and financial decisions. With very few exceptions, staff has adhered to these policies. A hiring freeze. Due to uncertain financial uncertainties, the Board of Commissioners has imposed a hiring freeze to control expenditures as a way to address any revenue shortfall in the general fund. The policy will be reevaluated as part of the review of the financial condition of the general fund entering through the 26-27 fiscal year. Approval of a special option tax for veterans occurred in November 2025. Voters approved a 5-year county tax levy of 3.5 cents per 1,000 assessed value to support the Veterans Service Office operations. Please see the departmental narratives throughout the budget for specific departmental goals and strategies. So the summary of financial activity for fiscal year 25-26. With various uncertainties regarding escalating costs and concerns about meeting revenue projections, the county is currently working under a hiring freeze for departments funded out of the general fund. Any open positions are reviewed before those positions can be filled. This has had an impact on keeping personal costs below budgeted amounts in numerous departments. The savings in labor costs have been offset with the need to provide additional funding for several projects due to escalating costs, including the animal shelter, unanticipated elevator costs for the jail, cost of fuel within the county's fuel station being down, has now required the county to purchase gas at higher than normal bulk prices, and expenses for the Lincoln County Health Centers. Health and Human Services has been negatively impacted with the loss of funding from several state and federal sources as the federal government shifts its priorities from funding to state and local governments. This may require a short-term interfund loan from Fund 209 to address shortages in Fund 216 Lincoln County Health Centers to cover this. Transient room taxes have been trending downward the past fiscal year, but the tourist season's transient room tax, starting to be recognized with the commencement of spring break, has shown that tourism strength may still be present within the next fiscal year. Time will tell. Other operating funds are running within parameters. These changes in financial conditions impact the projected beginning fund balances available at the beginning of the fiscal year 26-27. Summary of the budget. The county budget for fiscal year 26-27 has a couple of structural changes from the previous year. 2 new special purpose funds have been established in the proposed budget. Fund 106 Parks Department has been established to assure the transient room tax collected by the counties are appropriated to parks and are utilized within the park services. In addition, Fund 226, which is the Veteran Service, is being established to segregate the funding from the general fund as a result of the local option tax approved by voters in November in order to support these services. Both of these departments are currently part of the general fund. Property taxes. Property tax revenue is the single biggest source of revenue in the county. The county's permanent tax rate remains $2.8202 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. Treasury Department has estimated that property tax revenue for the county, including special districts, will be $34,233,842 for the fiscal year 26-27. Other revenues. Other major revenues include intergovernmental revenue, grants and payments received from federal, state, and other local governments, a 12% transient room tax, permits and fees charged for specific activities in the county, and charges for services, amounts charged for direct service that the county provides for the departments. The proposed budget addresses the balancing of rising costs with the need to maintain services to the community members in Lincoln County with relative flat operating venues. This is not an easy task with a reduction in federal and state funding in several departments coupled with rapidly rising costs now impacted by current oil prices. It is difficult to project how these oil prices will continue to impact prices for other materials and services throughout the course of the fiscal year, though. In addition, the cost of labor includes a 15% increase in healthcare costs and the continued high cost of PERS retirement system for eligible law enforcement personnel. The proposed budget includes a 3.5% cost of living adjustment for non-represented employees and adjustments as negotiated for those employees in bargaining units for the 26-27 fiscal year. Staffing levels have held mostly steady in the proposed budget due to the temporary hiring freeze implemented last fiscal year. Board of Commissioners intends to maintain a hiring freeze for departments funded by the general fund, with the hiring freeze being considered within HHS funds involved with the deficit presented by 216, while a feasibility study is currently being performed. Departments affected by the imposed hiring freeze can request an exemption of specific hiring critical roles, with the process ultimately seeking approval from the Board of Commissioners. Positions that are considered for exception are beholden to the conditions that the sustained vacancy will result in a loss of revenue or mandatory work will not be completed due to not having specific or relevant skill sets required by the department currently. Capital outlay. The proposed budget includes several major projects, which include the construction of the County Commons project, updating of essential critical jail security software, replacement of the jail roof, replacement and continuing work of the jail elevator, and sustained bridge work projects that are housed within Public Works. The county has been reserving transient room tax approved by the voters to complete the County Commons project. The balance of construction costs will be financed with a full faith and credit obligation bond. Due to current market conditions, the bond will likely be sold during the next fiscal year. At that time, a supplemental budget will be proposed to the Board of Commissioners to adjust the budget for the County Commons project and recognize the receipt of funds once this obligation occurs. The debt will be paid back using future transient room tax revenue. In conclusion, the biggest challenge facing the county and other local governments in the coming years is the rate that costs and expenses are increasing, which tends to lag behind recognized revenue growth. It is important that Lincoln County takes necessary steps to continue being a financially agile and sound organization. The county relies on diverse revenue sources and has generally maintained healthy fund balances in most of the operating funds. During these economically and politically challenging times, the attention of the Board of Commissioners and the administrative team needs to strengthen their focus on creating a longer-term financial plan to avoid having to take such drastic corrective steps during the course of the next fiscal year, such as addressing fund shortfalls, implementing hiring freezes for budgeted positions in order to keep the county on solid financial footing. Developing a longer-term financial plan has been complicated by a number of factors. The county has been operating without a county administrator now for over a year, and this is a critical position that provides communication to the board and to the departments on staffing and spending levels. This guidance is an important tool for finance and other departments for developing the annual budget as well. The county has also faced further complications with the passing of Commissioner Hall earlier this year, with the vacancy on the board remaining unfilled still. Lincoln County is catching up with audits that were not historically completed on a timely basis. This was complicated in part to the difficulty in filling the position of the finance director for the county during the prior fiscal years during that occurrence. Finance and departmental staff are currently assisting the auditors to complete the audit for the 24-25 fiscal year, and this will catch the county up with the annual audits. Timely annual audits are to be completed by the end of the calendar year, which from a workflow standpoint allows finance and other staff to focus on the budget after the first of the year. The annual audit for fiscal year 25-26 is scheduled and anticipated to be completed on time. This will essentially catch the county up from the prior year's delays. And finally, the finance department has been operating with 2 vacancies through almost the entire fiscal year, which has created timing issues in completing the budget, audits, and other tasks as well. The proposed budget should be considered a working document, and after it is reviewed by staff and budget committee, there could be further adjustments that the budget committee may be asked to consider prior to bringing the final budget to the Board of Commissioners to recommend for adoption. It is my opinion that the proposed budget presents a spending plan that reflects the priorities and policies of the county. Thank you.
Wow,
Thank you, Lennon. That was quite the report.
it really was.
Does anybody have any questions for Lennon? Or should we move on?
Chair Chuck, I just want to recognize that this is the most comprehensive budget message I think that I've ever seen. Well done, Lennon. He integrated EDALC's financial study. It's just so impressive. I mean, it's so comprehensive that depending on how much the budget committee is really dived into this in advance, I would understand, as we move through the week, understanding everybody's time to kind of figure out what they want to dive into and if they want to dive into it. I think, like Lennon identified, it's the working document component of this. There's so much to look at. So again, Lennon and the entire finance team, kudos, like amazing, right? There is so much here. I guess my thought is this budget message is super comprehensive. Do we take any questions later into discussion items? Do we engage in them here? It's just one concept I would propose. But other than that, I mean, wow, really well done.
Thank you.
I
We put a lot of work into this.
I concur with Commissioner Miller. That was 27 minutes of thorough and very pointed, accurate, I believe, budget presentation. And thank you so much, Lennon.
Thank you, guys.
I was timing you.
Toastmasters saved the day.
Yeah, I was like, can somebody tell him he can take a break here? That's fine.
So Lennon, the only thing I'd have to say is you did such a great job on doing this and your staff, and you pretty much answered most of the questions I had while you're reading it. So thank you for such a thorough message. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So next, we need to go to David Collier and compensation review board recommendation.
David, I have promoted you in the two compensation committee members I see in participants to panelist.
And PIO Lip, if you could pull up the document as he goes through it, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I go ahead and start?
Please do so, David.
All right. So with me, I believe I have all three, I have two of the three compensation board members and before I turn it over to them for the recommendation that they've made for the budget committee, I want to thank them all. Tiana Alcader, who's served on the board for 2 years, the last 2 years, and then Tiana DeVries and Joy Gutnick, who have actually served on the board for the last 5 years. It's been great having the consistency of having the same members, people that understand the process and understand the work, and that are so easy to work with. So I want to make sure that I thank them. And now I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the compensation board, Tiana DeVries, and let her do the presentation.
Hello and good evening. Everybody can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you so much. So in front of you, you have the background and information that the committee reviewed before we made recommendations. And you'll see the process that we went through and how we compared and reviewed all of the elements for compensation before making any decisions or actually recommendations as well. Not sure if you want me to go through each of those 8 things or if you're good with where they are.
Tend to zoom in on the document a bit more. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Yes, that really helps. Thank you.
I don't have a preference. Do you want Tiana to read all 8 reasons, or do you want to just have her do a wrap up?
So maybe a summary is
Okay.
good for me. I don't know if everyone.
Right.
Yeah,
Summary.
I think a summary of each of the 8 items would be helpful.
Right.
Sounds
Sure.
good.
Thank you. Go ahead,
Sure.
Tiana.
So when we go through each of those, and David can step in and help as well here, we look at what each of the groups is getting as far as they have been bargaining and what they've bargained. And then we look at what historically the increases have been. And then we're trying to make sure that we keep with other groups and making sure that we're not falling behind and making sure that supervisors stay ahead of their subordinates in general. So all of this big picture to make sure that we stay competitive. And then we also looked at many positions that stayed open and making sure that we're able to adequately recruit and hire and retain people in those positions. And so we reviewed each of those, the salary comparisons, the compressions. We looked at elected officials, as it says, and then the benefits are really challenging and oftentimes out of our control in many areas. And so it does come at a big expense as well. And then we did review letters written to the committee from 2 elected officials. And then we did discuss, as already has been discussed here, the budget situation and the freeze that is happening at the same time. And then we use the comps. David and his team provide the comps for other counties for positions, and then we try to stay comparable with those.
Thank you.
And then ultimately, our committee comes to recommend. We had 5 recommendations that came out of our work. And one of those, I'm not sure if those are on the next page, if you can scooch you
Ken, can you
down.
scroll up, please?
And then you keep going. There we go. Okay, so then into the yellow. Yep. So the compensation board, we recommended that the electeds have a 3% COLA for the fiscal year 26-27. We also recommend to eliminate the first step for the clerk and the treasurer, and that has been a practice that we have engaged in before in trying to reduce that beginning step, and then we just move that up so the second step becomes the first step. The assessor, clerk, and treasurer would make more, 1% more than the highest paid subordinate. So sometimes the next subordinate is that compression because they're moving at a faster pace along the scale than in which the steps are for the supervisor. And so we wanted to make sure that in those positions, they make at least 1% more than their highest subordinate, which is similar to how the sheriff works as well. And then there would be a red line if in that case the highest paid subordinate left. So there wouldn't be continuous increases unless they're connected to the highest paid subordinate. And then finally, the benefits would remain the same as the non-rep employees.
Great. Thank you, Tiana. Any questions, comments for Tiana?
Tiana, this is Tom Fulmer. Can you explain to me the line that talks about eliminating the first step and the second step becomes the first term and so on down the line, so I kind of understand what that means?
Sure, and David can step into if he needs to, but I don't have a scale in front of me. But ultimately, if you have a scale that has steps along there, we would eliminate the first step. And then so the whole scale moves forward. So what was the second step now becomes the first step. So that's the entry when someone is hired. And so step 1 is no longer there. And so step 2 becomes step 1.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. So
Okay.
a step is in essence their pay structure.
Correct. And
Okay.
so that entry level sometimes becomes, it's not comparable anymore to other like positions. And so for other counties, as we're comparing what that beginning, that entry is. And so then if they're not moving up quickly enough, we can adjust the scale so that, yes, that step 1 of their pay is now eliminated. And then we've moved it up 1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Tiana, but there's no there. It still ends at the same step or the same or does it all shift? Is there an extra
It
step
would all
now?
shift. Yeah.
Okay, so there is now a new. Okay,
The end, because yeah, the
Right.
end is still out there.
Tiana, this change is just for 26-27, or does it
Correct.
project ahead as a regular practice moving forward?
26-27, and then we meet every year in the spring to see what the bargaining units have come up with and what the area comps have come to, and then we make recommendations to the board again. We do it each year.
Got you. Thank you. And I think that's important that it just identifies, that it's not indefinite and perpetual, right? It's just
Right.
for this time. And I think that's important too, because, it gives us that projection essentially, that it's just moving forward for a year, not necessarily, forever.
Right. And if you scroll up too, there you're able to see the history that David put in there too. And oftentimes, if we don't try to keep at least a COLA that's consistent with other groups, it's really difficult to catch up, regardless of the budget is really difficult. But you'll see like in 2020 and 2021, there was a 0% COLA. And so it makes it difficult to ever, the next year you can't go to a 5%, right? So then you have a 0 and a 2, and then it compounds and it's difficult to gain that back. So
and
yes, it is for the year.
Thank
And
you.
Tiana, this is maybe a question for you and for Len. So this is proposing a 3% COLA, and what staff have received, at least non-represented staff, is a 3.5% COLA for this coming year. Maybe Len can. So not quite. You're recommending not quite as high for elected officials as for non-represented staff, and then whatever the union represented staff have negotiated. But
I believe
close.
that.
It's
I
yeah,
believe
but it's
that's
close.
accurate.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And they actually looked at what the least the union that was getting the least amount, which one of our unions was getting 3%. So that's what we talked about. So
Thank you for that, Tiana. Appreciate that. David? All right. Go on to our next agenda item. I'm opening the public hearing on the Lincoln County Extension Service District for the 26-27 fiscal year. We have Emily and Wiley presenting.
So Ken is having trouble with his Zoom controls. So I don't know if Wiley and Emily can unmute.
While we're waiting for that, did we need a motion on that or no?
No,
Okay.
nope, that's the last day.
Sorry, just give me 1 second. Stop showing my controls, so I needed to start over with the share and all that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Wiley and Emily have been promoted to panelist and should be ready whenever you guys are.
Yay.
Hey. Welcome, Wiley and Emily.
How's the audio?
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Ken, yes.
Can hear you both. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm not sure if our budget proposal will be shared. I wasn't given a directive of anything, but I can certainly share my screen
Kenneth,
as
if
needed.
if Kenneth could pull that up, great.
Yes.
Either way.
I don't have that.
May I share my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Ken.
Emily, I hit allow, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, well, this is, if you can see this is just my version of what I submitted into OpenGov for our budget request. And I'm going to read our budget message. It will be fairly brief. This budget portrays the expected financial performance of the Lincoln County Extension Service District for fiscal year 26-27 and shows the operations of the district. The extension agency for Lincoln County is operated in conjunction with Oregon State University and the Extension Advisory Committee. The voters approved the district in the general election of November 1988 and has a tax rate of 4.5 cents per 1,000 assessed value. In conformance with Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 294, this budget is balanced between its revenue and expenditures. The district is budgeted using the modified accrual basis of accounting, recording revenues at the time they become measurable and available to finance expenditures of the current period, and recording expenditures at the time liabilities are incurred. Significant revenues include property taxes. No major changes in financial policies are anticipated for this fiscal year. The district is organized into one general operating fund appropriated by the categories of materials and services, capital outlay, contingency, and ending balance. No personnel costs are budgeted in this fund. Quarterly payments made to Oregon State University support numerous agency programs. Other expenditures incurred by the county, such as audit, budget preparation costs, liability insurance, plus our district's annual lease payment to the county general fund are included in the materials and service category of the fund. The 26-27 budget in the amount of $1,555,250 is slightly higher than the prior fiscal year. The fund is carrying a contingency of $294,964, a reserve for program development of $372,161, and an unappropriated ending balance of $400,000. That comprises the total ending balance of $1,067,125. The combined ending balance is 69% of the total fund. That is our budget message, and I just had one prepared sheet I wanted to share. This is just, we have our program impact report is on our Lincoln County Extension website. It's also on the budget OpenGov as an attachment, but as a collective, our community impact at a glance. We've gotten $203,000 in awarded grants to power local programming and community initiatives. We've done 354 community connections. That's tabling events, workshops, outreach efforts across the 8 programs that we have. We've gotten 9,090 volunteer hours from 105 volunteers, and that's an estimated amount of $331,000 in community value. We've got 50 plus partnerships that we've built and continue to collaborate with those organizations across Lincoln County and neighboring communities. And then just in our office alone, we get a lot of people that call, walk in, and emails, roughly about 36 community interactions each month. And that's with 12 Oregon State University Extension employees in Lincoln County. So that is our snapshot.
Emily, can I ask a question? This is Tom Fulmer.
Yes.
Can you give us some examples of the $203,000 to local programming and community initiatives? What are some of those?
Yeah, we've had our SNAP education program, which we still had a little bit of funding, as you probably all are well aware. Some of that SNAP funding was discontinued from the federal government, but we still had some of that money that's being used until September 30th. And then our small farms program has gotten various grants in the community. I think one of them was upwards of $60,000. So she could provide various research projects along the coast in Lincoln County. Just a lot of smaller grants that have added up for us to be able to do certain research projects and other community outreach.
Okay, thank you. Is the Lincoln County Fair in that 203?
No, that is a separate contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Tom, can I piggyback on your question a bit? Emily, today I was participating in the COAD, and we were talking about wildfire preparation. Could you just briefly talk about, I forget Aaron's last name, and how he serves Lincoln County and providing wildfire?
Yeah.
Talk about that. Just a quick
sec. So Aaron Groth is our fire specialist. He services Lincoln County, Tillamook County, Clatsop County, Polk, Yamhill, a couple others. So he has a very big region. But he does spend a lot of time in our county providing passed the very thing that you were a part of today, Casey, because we request that. And so he's always happy to come and, comes in person and does a lot of outreach events with the Spanish and Hmong population. And then anytime, people ask him, he's been to Yachats in Lincoln City during emergency preparedness fairs to give outreach presentations. Maybe Wiley has a little more to share.
Yeah, Aaron has about a 9-county service area, and that also includes Columbia. So he gets out into the valley. He'll do his focus is preparedness, but he'll also support the controlled burn workshops to help people work on those. He's done some work with our fuel reduction group. Aaron is a Spanish speaker from his time in the Peace Corps. And we know that a lot of the fuel reduction requirements it's a manual labor effort, and the Spanish language is very important to serve that up. A lot of the community are Spanish speakers, so Aaron has done some work there to include making. They filmed controlled burns and fuel reduction, and he did the Spanish version of that, so that could be shared. Especially the safety that goes along with that.
Yeah, thank you both. I mean, I guess my thoughts are just, so much, so much community value provided by extension. So appreciate it so much.
Thank you. So nothing else from the committee? Okay.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Wiley.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you both. So at this time, I'm asking if there is any public comment on the Lincoln County Extension Service District. If you do have a comment on the district, please use the hand raise feature. Ken, are we seeing any hands being raised?
No, sir.
Okay. Last call. Any comments for the Lincoln County? I'm sorry, for the Extension Service District? Okay. Seeing none, I'm closing the hearing. Is there any budget committee discussion on the Extension Service District?
Was great.
All right.
Always appreciate extension.
We do.
Thank you. Appreciate
thank you,
all you
Chair
do
Chuck.
for the county.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, and I'd like to thank Lennon and his work. Emily does all the prep for the budget and works with your staff, and it wouldn't happen without that coordination and partnership. I'm kind of like a blister. I show up after the work's already done, and so and also I'd like to thank the budget committee for your volunteer work in this capacity, and the commissioners for your work in supporting us year round. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you guys for your hard work.
Thank you,
as well.
Wiley.
Thank you,
Have a good-
Wiley.
Have a good day.
Emily used to help me with my budget at Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, so I know she's a budget expert.
Nice.
All right. At this time, I'm opening the public hearing on the Lincoln County Solid Waste Disposal Service District for the 26-27 fiscal year. I think we have Mr. Paul Seitz on board for that one.
Yes, good morning, or good evening. Excuse me. Lincoln County Solid Waste District. I'm assuming you can see the screen that I'm sharing.
Paul, I think you have to request to share.
Oh, hang on. Thank you.
We did see something there, though.
Yeah, we did
There
see
you
it.
go.
We
There
did
you
see it there. There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody's good? All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hello, Paul Seitz, Lincoln County Solid Waste District. So we're going to fly through this real quick on the program that it is. The Lincoln County Solid Waste District is funded by $4 a ton tip fee at the landfill, basically. Our three hauling companies collect that, and that is the majority of revenues. There's some miscellaneous grants and other funding, such as at-cost things that I get reimbursed from the U.S. Forest Service. But for the most part, The bulk of the funding is the $4 a ton tip fee to operate this program. The main focus of today's presentation, I think, really is partnerships, and that's where we take this little bit of money that we do get and we extend it as far as we can. The community do as much as we can, and those programs are the Forest Enforcement Program, which is basically, I'll kind of get some details as to how we spend this money in a moment. The Forest Enforcement Program, which is basically illegal dumping prevention. The District Administration, which is meeting DEQ regulations. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee, which is how we serve both the community of the cities and the county. And collaborative education events such as the things that you see like household hazardous waste, illegal dumping prevention, some other community service, like I mentioned, U.S. Forest Service. We also do operational work at the landfill, although there's no budget money involved. And there's disaster debris management that we assist with, also no money involved directly on that. Now see if I can go to the next screen successfully here. So the Forest Enforcement Program, basically this program is, my notes in front of me here. Our partner is the Sheriff's Office and 14 timber companies, which make up the Association of Concerned Landowners. They pay for about half of the salary of a deputy, and the district pays the other half. We get a little bit of money from ODFW, and that allows basically the gates to be left open for the public to utilize our lands. And we go out and patrol it, make sure illegal dumping and other things that we don't want to happen in our community get stopped. So this program funds that. The whole idea is based on Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife's Access and Habitat Grant Program. And so this summer we're going to do a clean sweep. We'll spend a little more money on the timberlands because our intent is when we close the gates for fire season, I've kind of made a request to the timber companies, why don't we leave our forests clean this year? So we will be spending a little bit more money out there so that in fall, when people go back out, we don't have the illegal dump sites, and we really focus on those who wish to dump in our area come fall on a new program. Going on. Community events, we spend the other big chunk of money in basically the areas of this. Our partners in the community events world are our haulers. They are really a great partner in, they provide like the compost free giveaway for Earth Day every year. They have the location for household hazardous waste events. We host the tire events with them, our mattress events, which are coming soon to you. And they operate depots for recycling. All these are done within the regulations of DEQ, and the district funds some of the background of those programs, such as the tire event, household hazardous waste event. But I also want to mention our partners of OSU Extension Service, the same folks you just had on a moment ago. They are fantastic partners with us on this, as they help us produce the compost booklets, which is that garden compost picture you see there. And the reason why there's a bug on the frame is because they help us do the pesticides reduction booklets, which we call Insect Heroes. And they also provide staffing at our events, such as walking the lines of the cars, waiting in the lines to help promote educational materials such as composting and bug pesticide reduction, so that those programs are successful. So that's a partnership, and again, we get a lot of a lot of bang for our buck for the money we spend in these programs because of these partners. The illegal dumping program that we have going, this is in addition to the Forest Enforcement Program. U.S. Forest Service likes our program, such as RV abatement that we do, and they have helped fund to the tune of $250,000 over the last few years, cleanups of U.S. forest lands we are a contractor to them and clean them up. We also fund Surfrider and Solve cleanups. Our haulers do a lot of donations, and the district may take a larger role in helping do community cleanups and events such as beach cleanups and other things as we move forward and down the line. I think that's all we can do there. And then I'll get into the no cost thing, the Agate Beach landfill. If you didn't know, we have one of many, but the closed Agate Beach landfill in our community. This is no longer operational. It's a long closed, 30-year closed landfill, but we still have to do maintenance on it. Our cities have to spend money every year to guarantee that it's safe. We have a DEQ permit to operate this. We have to maintain it. And so those are all costs to our community that this district helps administer and make sure it operates successfully. And then lastly, I'll throw out some numbers and some things for you to actually see results of. So the RV abatement program, we went to the board about 3 years ago and asked for $500,000. The district had a boom time a few years ago. We had some money that was sitting in the bank, and we decided to spend down about $500,000 of that on RV abatement. For those who may or may not have been here at the time, we had an RV in every turnout. It was quite incredible. It was not the prettiest of sights, and many of them got left on our roads, in our parks, and up in the forest areas. And so we started cleaning those up. And over the last 3 years, that $500,000 is joined with another $250,000, as I mentioned, from the U.S. Forest Service. And we cleaned up about 100 RVs, about 40 other boats, trailers, and other vehicles. And it's hard to see in this picture, I apologize, but the idea of the scattergram there is just to show you that it occurred all over the county, not just in one place, not just in one city or one area. It really was everywhere. We've kind of got on top of it, we don't have the influx of a high influx of incoming RVs, but we are continuing on our efforts in education, cameras, through code enforcement, through law enforcement to help reduce so that there's not an incentive to re-offend, if you will, in the program. So that is kind of a success story that we have going. And see if there's any other notes I wanted to cover real quick. This was the biggest expenditure that we had. And even though the district does have a little extra money right now, still, we are looking at a declining budget, just as a side mention. As the economy moves downward, people don't throw as much away. People travel less. People do less. And again, I'm reliant upon the $4 a ton. So if we're throwing away less or disposing of less, which is technically a good thing in one sense, we do receive less revenue. So we're anticipating future less revenues, but nothing of significant amounts to threaten programs or programming. With that, I've kind of raced through our program and leave it open for questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions.
Paul,
Go
this
ahead,
is
Tom.
Tom Fulmer. Nice to see you again. So, what happens when illegal dumping has been found? And, well, I guess that's my question. What happens when there is a new site of illegal dumping?
Let's take a couple of stabs at this because there's a few options available. We have, let's just say, many cards in our hand to play on this. But in a general sense, in the forest areas, we try and get it cleaned up as quick as possible. If we can identify the perpetrator and it's something, a known individual or findable individual, that's for law enforcement. They do chase that down. We had one person who was moving an RV around town, and he kept dumping it on the road, and he kept getting caught and tagged and kept dumping it in another location. And I believe that one went to court, and I've submitted for reimbursement for the court. That I believe they've requested for restitution in that case. So there are ways for the county to recoup money, but for the most part, most of them are not known. Forest, the landowner, if it's done on land, let's say timberland, the landowner is technically responsible to clean that up. So if you're private property, someone came in and put a dump truck full of stuff, it's you as the private property owner who has to clean that up. We try and assist wherever we can. And we do have programs such as Dropbox programs for people who just have no money and they've been dumped upon and these other things happen. And code enforcement works with them. And in lieu of giving them a citation, we provide them a box, but they have to then keep it clean for 1 to 5 years, depending on what the situation is. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Do you have is there a process for residents and even tourists to report an illegal dumping site?
Yeah, they can call it the non-emergency dispatch. This is all done through law enforcement. I'm a
That's right.
funding portion of this. I do respond. I have an employee who myself and he sometimes will clean that up. We have road crews. Again, there's a menu of options of ways to get things cleaned up. There's a crew that uses inmate labor, if you will, that can go out and clean up. So there's a number of ways that we can clean up a site, but our goal is to get it off so it doesn't attract more dumping.
So it's anyone that finds something, they should be calling the Lincoln County Sheriffs.
That would be, or the city. You can contact dispatch, which will get you to the right location. But if you're in city limits, that would be a reportable thing to your city or to the county sheriff's department. Correct.
Okay. And I'm assuming you don't have any jurisdiction over private property that, borders the highways and the river. Is that correct?
Private property is private property. Now, a person's been dumped on, they need assistance. Again, we have to be invited on for the most part for private property, or code enforcement can come. Again, this is through the sheriff's office and say, gosh, something, you've been storing that pile of stuff for a long time. You need to clean it up.
Yeah, I asked that question because I live up in Tidewater, right along the river.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure code enforcement has been contacted, but there's an abandoned property about between milepost 8 and 9 that is full of RVs and trailers. The place is falling apart. There's right off you can't miss it when you're on Highway 34 going up and down. And it's something that all of us going up and down 34 have been watching and seeing for at least 5 years, and nothing has changed.
So this is you're talking about just past Grizzly. What's the name of the road? Anyway, there's a turn in the road. I think I know exactly the location.
Yeah, you do. It's hard to miss, and be nice to get that cleaned up, but
sure.
Doesn't sound like that's something that Lincoln County Solid Waste does.
It would not. Well, I may be involved in the background. I go to the code. I'm a guest to the code enforcement meetings, which is really nice. I'm kind of honored to go to those meetings. I do hear of these discussions, why I know about it. And often I'm involved in the funding, or they ask questions about what codes, regulations are related to solid waste, how we get hold of DEQ. So I am involved, but really, truly, all of these would be sheriff's office discussions or questions, whether it's their civil or their regular patrol.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Paul. So for this proposed fiscal year budget, how many RV/autos/boats do you think you could afford to remove, generally speaking?
So in this upcoming budget, it's an interesting question. I'm going to back up the train one station. I have basically put out a memo to our board and it's just in draft form. It hasn't been finalized yet, that we have spent the $500,000 they initially told me to spend. It hasn't been fully spent yet, but by the time the fiscal year comes to a close and we get into summer, it'll have all been spent. And that's where that little map came from, the little picture I showed you, all the dots. And so I need to go back to our board probably in January and come up with a new proposal for this. So when you ask the question, I did leave some funding in there. We do offer one RV per city. So each city gets to request this because all my funding is spread across the county, including cities, my revenue. So each city gets basically an RV. The county get one or two in that. So let's just say we're less than 10 in this next year's the goal. I will probably dispose of more because if people fund it themselves, like ODOT, they'll frequently call and say, hey, Paul, can you get this? Or can we work on we will work together and we, again, use partnerships to get more. Or if a property owner says, I don't know how to do it, but would you clean it? I'll pay for it. Those would be ways I can do additional on top of that, but probably about 10 this next year.
It's such
you.
a high visibility program. It's really impressive, but it's also one like it would be great to find more money for. I mean, hopefully the problem starts decreasing over time too, right? So I mean, that's the other bit.
Correct.
And just to kind of piggyback off Ms. Dawn's comments, Mr. Seitz, can you talk a little bit about, you've obviously done a lot of work with RV abatements. Do you feel though that it's kind of trending downward? What are your projections, at least in what you've accomplished and what you've seen?
Yeah, I would say the pandemic brought an epidemic that was unforeseen and wow, it was a wow. We will not see that again. And the thing that we're kind of leaning into now is the sources. There's always going to be several sources of them, not all one source. It's not all homeless or unhoused. It's not all chop shops. It's not all drug dealers dumping them in the woods. There's a whole variety. But as we kind of are approaching this, we've been taking on one group at a time. And I believe we're going to make inroads with the chop shop kind of group. That if you're going to cut up one and go stick it in the woods and dump it, that's kind of the group we're going after in this next 5-year kind of thinking. That would be from the sheriff's office, from the haulers, from all of us working together on it. We're kind of putting together a program, and U.S. Forest Service and I, every time someone advertises, hey, I'll dump your RV for you for free, we send them letters and we try and contact them. We try and get hold of them on social media and we try and notify folks. So that's where the energies go. And then we also have cameras. And so that's the other area. So to answer your question, I think we are going to start stemming this, but it's a heavy pressure on us because there is I don't know what the term would be. There's an incentive for them to do it. They make profit.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
No, Paul, thank you for your presentation. That was great. Other than that, thank you for all you do for the solid waste district. I work pretty closely with you and I know what you do and it's much appreciated.
Commissioner, thank you. Your support of this has been fantastic. We've really appreciated that as well.
Okay. All right. So at this time, are there any public comments on the Lincoln County Solid Waste Disposal Service District? If you do wish to make a comment, please use the raise your hand feature.
I don't see any.
And are there any raised hands?
I don't see any, Commissioner.
Okay. Last call. Are there any public comments on the Lincoln County Solid Waste Disposal Service District? Okay. Still none? Okay. I am now closing the hearing. Are there any budget committee is there any budget committee discussion on the Solid Waste Disposal Service District? None? Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, back to the agenda. Any further discussion of the budget? All right.
Commissioner Check, you're just asking about general comments
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
questions.
thank you.
Any further discussion? Yeah.
I have a couple, just a couple clarifying questions for Lennon.
Okay.
And so one, is Lennon
Yep.
available? Okay. Um, so I had a question regarding the transient lodging taxes and with the change at the state legislature this last legislative session that changed the percentage that counties or local governments can use for things other than just marketing/tourism. And I know, so I was confused whether that money is, now that we are going to have an increase in percentage that can be used for other things. I was confused if that has already been allocated to parks or if that has not yet been allocated, decision on how that will be, those potential additional monies might be spent. Let me know if
The
that
al
question makes sense.
Yeah, the original allocation when we cut out parks from the general fund to be a standalone to support this had savings from the over the course of the last few years of the TRT that was saved for them. That was the primary purpose of that. So as far as the future, the recalculation for if they're going to receive it for parks yet or not, no, that discussion hasn't quite happened yet. I would work with Jane Welch, the treasurer, because she helps determine the money that comes in and the allocations of that. We work together on that when the time comes, once we start getting receipts. So as we start to get receipts, we'll look at that more closely once that time kind of comes through.
Ca-
I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, can I just interject really quick? So, Ms. Don, so the voters passed it was an increase, I think, of 2% to dedicate to of TRT funds for parks. And so that was a voter approved use of those funds. And that's split. So that 2% is split 70% to parks, 30% to general fund of the county. And that was a voter approved measure. I don't know if that is your question. In the
That, and
future,
that's,
yeah.
yeah, that's separate. So I was trying to clarify if the parks one was a separate, I'm talking about the brand new, that's the larger transient lodging tax
So the
split. Yeah.
So in the future, the board could decide to change allocations of how that's used. And so that could be a future decision of commissioners and boards really all over the state if they wanted to, change the allocations. What's currently, though, if it's voter approved, we do have that by ordinance. And so those would have to stay the same percentages. But yeah, certainly they could change the allocation.
Thank you both for the clarification.
Good question.
Any further
I-
discussion on the budget document?
Thank you, Commissioner Chuck. I have a question. Just, like this agenda item, we don't have departments, general countywide departments presenting this year, it looks like. As we project ahead, tomorrow night, for example, is the Siletz Law Enforcement Service District Committee. We'll regroup, it looks like, on Thursday night to continue budget committee discussion. Um, in the interim, should we present any structural questions, general questions to staff, to Lennon, anyone in particular, to regroup moving into Thursday night? Kind of any thoughts on if we're now just diving into this or we have dived into it and may or may not be ready tonight, how do we kind of push those inquiries into finance or the budget committee and then kind of bring them back or not into our next meetings?
I think that's a great question, Commissioner Miller. And I kind of feel like I just maybe want to ask some like just the bigger picture questions tonight, but it might be nice to have a little bit of structure for Thursday, maybe just taking kind of like big general chunks of the budget. Again, we're really looking more at the like 10,000 and 30,000 foot view and just making sure we have a balanced
Yeah.
budget to approve. So I don't that might be my recommendation. Maybe just some very general questions here, and maybe us just determine if we are okay with again going through like some large chunks, breaking out large chunks, so where we could dive into a little bit more detail on Thursday as needed.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's what I was thinking too, because I just, I wanted to wait to kind of see where everything was going into tonight and then see what extent we might be able to kind of dive deeper if we wanted to.
Do you want to chime in on this at all?
If anybody has any specific questions, I can try to answer them. Because some things may not be in my purview, or in my
Sure.
wheelhouse for those answers. I can try to do that, but yeah, if there's any specific questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll do what I can.
Thank you, Lennon. My thought is to kind of finish this line of thinking. I know we do have a placeholder, it looks like for Friday, but it's possible we might wrap it up Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are a little ahead of schedule. I mean, if people have questions now, it might be good to get them out of the way.
Yeah.
Maybe just have I want to like from the 30,000 foot view, Len, and just make sure that I'm hearing correctly kind of what this proposed balanced budget is trying to do. I know that there's a lot of uncertainties around state and federal funding moving into the future. And
Mhm.
so we're trying to be cautious and plan for tight times. I know we have a lot of uncertainty about the continuing cost of goods,
Mhm.
including fuel. And I know we're trying to preserve existing staff, right? We're trying to avoid any layoffs. And so I just want to
Right.
make sure that that's kind of again that big picture that we feel like we're trying to accomplish here. And if there's any other ones that maybe I'm missing, I'd love
I
your
think
opinion.
I think that's a great question. Yeah, ultimately, throughout the year, when I was asked various questions, my answer stayed the same: was the goal is to retain the critical services without having to cut those, and to retain employment for the current employees. I didn't
Mhm.
want to have to. And sometimes I had a few people ask about the hiring freeze and how that might be more of just a band-aid to a bigger thing. And yes and no, that's a double-edged question, because while it can be seen that way, it's also a strength too, because if we're uncertain for 1 or 2 years, a hiring freeze prevents a much larger, say, a cut to a service that takes years to build back, or cutting parts of a department that takes years to restaff with qualified subject matter experts. So it's a more of
Yeah.
it's a temporary, let's measure the volatility and see where we sit in a little while. And to comment on the hiring freezes that we had last fiscal year, that helped us afford. There's a critical jail software, security software that we now have to afford kind of out of the blue, and we're able to afford that now because of the hiring freeze. And it's things like that that have come up that we have those sorts of requests have had to have been more agilely handled. And so part of this budget is a little more proactive approach to trying to think about, okay, what bigger, longer term projects can we start putting a little bit of money aside now instead of having to ante up all at the end. And so that's what this whole budget does, is it tries its best to retain the employment, retain the critical services, do as much as we can with what we have, and also trying to prevent any major side swipes, fiscal side swipes from unknown things. If we can try to prepare for that a little bit as best we can, that's the goal of this budget. I hope that
Appreciate
answers your
that,
question.
Lennon.
Yes, that's very helpful. And I think, I think everyone's anticipating there's going to need to be adjustments along the way throughout the fiscal year, especially as maybe some more knowns start coming into
Yep,
play.
that's almost guaranteed thing in county government across the country. Yep.
I think to just kind of riff on that question, Ms. Dawn and Mr. Pierce, how difficult is it, from your experience when we look at projecting ahead to those state and federal funds? I mean, are some predictable? Do some come just suddenly? Is there any kind of predictable or measurable anticipation on those at all from your experience so far?
I don't have a longevity in public as much as I do private, but I can tell you
Yeah.
that the last 5 to 10 years or so doesn't follow traditional norms for where I would have anticipated certain things. It's
Yeah.
a little more volatile, a little less, a little more roll of the dice on some things that I was unsure about. So
Yeah.
that definitely plays into the volatility meter going up for that.
Okay. It's a volatility meter.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. Yeah, that's the challenge.
Well, Lennon, I think you pretty much summed it up in your message. I think you've done a really good job of being flexible and also tailoring it so you can look forward to a few things that are going to be popping up. So I think the way you've built this budget and the way that you got it balanced says a lot about you and how you're looking at taking care of the county's finances. So thank you for that.
Thank you, guys.
No further discussions with Lennon. We'll start the public comment on Lincoln County budget. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Ken will be keeping time. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand. Do we have any raised hands, Ken?
I do not see any, Commissioner.
Okay. Still no hands?
No, sir.
Okay. At that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting until May 28th of 2026 at 6 p.m. for a virtual meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Thank you, Kristen, Dawn. Thank you, Mr. Fulmer, for your participation and staff that helped put this together. Have a nice evening, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Everyone,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.